Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. Good. 4 Gospels. So here's another thing. I'm just kind of going off on a tangent here a little bit because I'm thinking about the Gospels now. So what about the idea that John was just kind of like they try to fill in the gaps, basically, like the idea that Jesus' divinity comes in with the early church, the very early church. So then the author of John, who's most likely John, just kind of puts in all the Jesus divinity stuff in the New Testament.
Yep. Of course he was filling in gaps. That doesn't mean he was making it up. I mean, I think the gospel authors were filling in gaps. So look at in 1 Corinthians 15. He cites an early creed. He talks about an appearance to James and an individual appearance to Peter. He's just sort of reciting knowledge they already know about. He's just reminding them of this. So then the Gospels come on, they don't mention those. Why? Well, I think they were supplementing what the early oral traditions were already there. So they were just trying to give more additional information to what the early church already knew and espoused. And I think then people later in life were like, well, we want to hear more about Jesus. So John wrote his gospel to give them more information. I don't see that as any problem. It's like just asking more eyewitnesses, tell me more. I mean, what's wrong with it? It doesn't mean they made it up.
Yeah, definitely. So what about, because I think that they'll say, hey, you know, the divinity of Jesus is a pretty core doctrine of Christianity, the idea that Jesus is God. So wouldn't the early writers like Paul, they'll say Paul never mentions it. The Gospels really don't. The first 3, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, never really mentioned that Jesus is divine. So you could, and I feel like they say, you know, that's a pretty important thing. So they're just leaving out. So obviously the Bible is corrupted because XYZ.
So I'm thinking of doing this video. I don't know of the time right now, but so N.T. Wright wrote like a 1,500-page book called Paul and the Faithfulness of God. And I read it. If you have the time. Yeah, I will show it to you.
Dude, that's oh my gosh. I think
hold on. It's two books. That's how big it is. It's 2 books. And my dogs ripped off the cover of this book because, you know, they're dogs. But this is how big it is. And it's a great book. It went through and I just highlighted a bunch of it. So, we ran another page. So there's your highlights throughout. But yeah, it's a great book. But he has got a whole section on Paul's monotheism, and he argues extensively that Paul a lot of times alludes to, or he actually will talk about Jesus, but he will quote Old Testament passages that are about Yahweh, and he'll say, he'll use these Old Testament passages to talk about Jesus in really obvious ways where he's clearly showing that Jesus is Yahweh. And so that's missed a lot of times because we're not that familiar with the Old Testament. But the section on monotheism in there is actually really great, and he explains why Paul is being a monotheist and saying that Jesus is God. So I would say that's quite early. As well as Jesus, you know, throughout the Synoptic Gospels calls himself the Son of Man, which is a reference to Daniel 7, which is this divine figure that rides on the clouds and is given dominion and authority, and people worship him. You also have to remember in the Old Testament, only Yahweh rides the clouds. No one else can. Yet the Son of Man rides the clouds. So the Son of Man is Yahweh. And so if you look at people like Michael Heiser, check out my video, The Trinity in the Old Testament, there's a lot of evidence of this early Trinitarian ideas in the Old Testament.